The previous basket is under review.
Arizona under Tommy Lloyd is still looking for that big March breakthrough, but it's hard to argue with the success, especially in the regular season, that they have had. Another 24-win season last year, another top 15 KenPom finish. Tommy's 4 for 4 in that regard. So the floor is incredibly high, and the talent level with this group is very, very high as well. Bringing a massive recruiting class with a couple of 5-star guys, another fringe 5-star in Dwayne Aristoti, who I think people are very, very excited about down in Tucson, and one big-time international kid as well, and even Karchenkov, who we'll talk about as well as the video goes on. But it's a new look group, Fawcett, and I think that's always what's exciting. The Caleb Love era is over, for better and for worse. But also some other key pieces, like a Henry Vasar, who we talked about in our North Carolina video. He departs. And so I think Arizona's probably going to have to play a little bit differently. This is a group that's super athletic, super fun to watch, I think, at times. But there are some concerns I think you'll see on the film of how they might play in the half court that could hold them back from, again, taking that leap from dominant regular season team to a team that can maybe make a push for a Final Four or national championship.
I thought Arizona was kind of an underrated, really interesting story from last year, just because I remember distinctly the podcast, the shows, the tweets of people just saying like, "Oh, Arizona's cooked." Like after those early season games, everyone was. I remember the storylines. Oh, like this isn't Lloyd's year. Oh, did they not have enough NIL? Oh, this team isn't talented. And then they had injuries for a team that everyone had already declared didn't have enough NIL and wasn't talented enough. And then you just, you wait, you wait for the season to develop. You wait to see what happens. And it's a team that obviously did extremely well in the Big 12, finished 13th in KenPom. Like that turnaround. I mean, I wish there was more people in the Arizona fan space who could pull some of those receipts from early in the season, because man, there'd be some funny takes. So I thought that was really impressive. And as you talk about the wholesale changes here in roster, Lloyd is someone I feel like is going to figure it out, at least to some extent. Sure, we can talk ceiling, and we certainly will over the next 20 minutes here, but the floor has been so well established here.
Yeah, and part of that is the system that they play. Obviously, sort of the Mark Few Gonzaga influence style that Florida just took to a national championship. They're going to be dominant on the glass. They're going to be able to push and get easy baskets. Like all those things give you a very high floor. And then the question is the ceiling. And oftentimes the ceiling has been dictated by the guard play. And we'll see if Arizona has that this year. I will say I hate to make this podcast one of those podcasts that centers all of college basketball around what they talk about on this podcast. Think Arizona didn't magically get better because we made a scout team video about them last year, but I do really enjoy looking back last season and seeing when we talked about a team multiple times and seeing the growth. And that to me is one of the rewarding things about doing this and like really diving deep into teams. Was we did a video off that Duke Arizona game, like the second week of the season. And I think our big takeaway was like, man, Arizona might be in trouble. Like there are some shaky things offensively with this group. It's pretty rickety. And by early February, this was a team that was absolutely rolling, and we were able to go back and see the changes that they made and see how Lloyd adjusted stylistically to the personnel he had. And so I feel very confident he'll do the same this year, again, with a very, very talented group. But again, some changes. And one of the changes mid-season that they really took on was putting the ball more in Henry Vasar's hands and in short roll situations. And unfortunately, that's not something they really have with their skill sets. It was huge to bring back Krivas, who's a potential NBA pick. It was huge to bring back Awaka, who's been big and physical and tough. But their center position just looks a little different with those guys out there.
Yeah, so as a reminder, they really were awesome in pick and roll, and particularly with these middle third pick and rolls. But of course, the big piece here is Vasar, who is the lob target. You could throw it up to just about anywhere. He'd go get it, catch in the short roll, either hit a cutter, hit that corner skip. He was tremendous and such a big part of what they did. And I think as you are looking forward to a little bit of this year, you kind of look back and say, okay, well, are these other bigs capable of doing that? Krivas, not as quite as strong on the ball, not quite as vertical, and he struggled in some of these settings. Here's that same kind of middle third ball screen, and you see that indecision as he looks right, as he looks left, doesn't know what to do, and he travels. Same kind of situation here with Wildcat. Catches that ball, doesn't really know what to do. So I guess him going straight downhill, and it's a charge that you could see coming from a mile away. And I think that that's going to be a little bit of the concern, is with some of these middle third ball screens that were so good with a Vasar, maybe isn't going to be as good with these other groupings. And what I think Arizona would be really wise to do is to go to more of these side ball screen actions, where it really makes things simpler on the roller. They don't have to think, okay, if I catch in the short roll, where's the help coming from? Where's our cutter coming from? Can I see the opposite? When you're doing that empty side ball screen, they're just going right to the rim, and everything is in front of them. So as you see in situations like this, you play that empty side ball screen and everything's in front. Roller goes to the rim, occupies help. Guard can make a read. There it is. Watches as there's this kind of catch in the short roll, able to turn and see 3 teammates in front of them. It's very clean as to what the next read is. And in a lot of situations for Arizona, it's going to be that opposite skip. You can see what they like to do is have that 45 dive, pit in for that corner, simplify it for the big man. Same thing here. Look as they catch into the short roll there, because it's an empty side. He knows everything is on one side. Everything is in one frame of vision. And that's where I think that Arizona can be much better, even kind of getting into trouble here, picks up the dribble. It's okay. I know where all my teammates are. You can find a way out of the trouble. So getting away a little bit from some of that middle third stuff where you need your bigs to be playmakers out of the short roll, I would maybe stray away from that a little bit if I was Coach Lloyd, and get into a little bit more of that side ball screen action, those empty actions. And I don't want to say that Wildcat and Krivas are bad players, because they're absolutely not. And the area I actually just really love them is when it comes to traditional post play. I love some Tobe Awaka bully ball, and he doesn't have a lot to his post game because he doesn't need to. He just gets to his right hand, creates space with that shoulder, and has great touch. And it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how much of this Arizona can run, as teams are kind of getting used to scouting it and trying to take these guys away. But you look on some of these plays, they just do such a good job of getting the catches so deep that it's one move and go and score. It's not survey the defense, use a bunch of bounces, let the defense develop, catch the ball, get 2 feet in the paint, and get to your dominant hand. Perfect. That's where I think these guys are fantastic. And that's where I think that Arizona could have a lot of success. And I mean, Lloyd is someone who has had no problem playing bully ball, no problem featuring his bigs. I think he does have 2 guys that can be really good there on the low block. But yeah, when it comes to some of these higher level, Vasar short roll reads, I'm going to say maybe not with this group.
Yeah, and look, the other factor in this, and a guy who will be a huge part of their team, is Koa Pete. He's a top 10 freshman, was on the USA U19 team, was very productive, had some efficiency questions because he is also someone that's not really going to stretch the floor. He's like that traditional like bully ball 4 that is going to just shove you under the rim and score at the cup. I got to say, if nothing else, teams are going to leave Tucson with bruises up and down their body from playing this front court. Like, they are going to batter people into submission. But again, just kind of structurally how you make that work with 2 guys who are going to want to make, maybe want the ball on the block is interesting. I do think maybe you can use Pete more in that short roll, and maybe even stick the 5s in the dunker and try to play high low. And I think there's some optionality with that. But I will say, if I were in my brain, I like Pete with a big like Vasar who can stretch it a little more and have a little bit more skill. They can interchange a little bit more. So I'm interested in that marriage. And I do think there's a world where the half court offense gets a little bit bogged down. Especially with Jaden Bradley, a point guard who's not a great 3-point shooter by any stretch. He's a guy who likes getting to those mid-range pull-ups. Pete is someone who took a pretty shaky shot diet on that U19 team. And obviously, post scoring is not necessarily the most efficient way to get a bucket in college hoops, because you're playing with your back to the basket. It's harder to get fouled. So I'm very interested to see what Arizona looks like in the half court. I do have some fears that maybe offensively they have a similar slow start to last season, where they're just sort of out of sync and out of rhythm and not getting great shots. But the athleticism and the physicality is going to give them a really high floor offensively, because they're going to draw fouls, because they are going to get out in transition and run. And Jaden Bradley is electric when he gets out running. He's one of the best athletes leading the break in the country, I think.
Yeah, it's just when it gets to the half court here with Bradley, I start to have some questions. I mean, he is a fantastic mid-range shooter. But the problem with that is I almost think he's, a good enough mid-range shooter to get you beat, because he almost goes to it a little bit too much. And yes, it's great that someone can create space and find a way to score in the mid-range at the end of a clock, but it's his first read. And I think he often doesn't look at what the next best option is. So as you can see here, a situation he's playing against a drop defense, seems like he's decided he's going to take a pull-up the moment the ball screen came up to him. And as you see that the drop defender has fully engaged him, this would be an easy pocket pass here that's going to be a dunk for his teammate. But hey, and maybe good job on the scope here by Oregon. They just sell out on contesting the mid-range jumper, and it misses. Same kind of situation here as we get to the middle of the floor. I'm going to pause. Everyone breaks down. Would be a perfect opportunity to make a pass to the opposite 45 for an open three. But again, Jaden Bradley, when he turns around a ball screen, gets to the middle of the floor, he is just looking pull up, pull up, pull up. And that's an area where, again, I would love to see him look to get away from that a little bit and get a little bit more to being a passer. And again, I think that separation is something I don't see a lot of him creating. And I often see plays like the last two where the moment he drives and sees a body in front of him, he's just looking to pick up his dribble and pull it up. Here's a situation too. He drops his defender, has a huge advantage, gets the nail, and his first instinct is, oh, I'm going to pull up and get to that jumper. And I think what maybe frustrates me about that the most is a lot of players who go to the pull-up are not confident going to the rim, whether they don't have the ability to do so, whether they are scared to finish among the trees, whatever it is. Often guys who go a lot to the mid-range are not good finishers at the rim. That is not the case with Jaden Bradley. I think he's great at finishing at the rim. And when he just goes into north-south, I want to get to the rim with a quicker first step than my defender has, that's where he's at his best. Just look at some of these isolation plays, recognizes a lane, a double gap, and he just turns on the jets and gets to his dominant hand and finishes. This is where I think he can be tremendous. I haven't seen it enough. And when you watch plays like this, I think everyone watching this is going to agree. You watch these last 4 or 5 plays of him getting right to the rim and finishing, and you watch the plays before, even when he was hitting those mid-range jump shots, I think we can all be in agreement what's going to be a little bit better. And for this Arizona team particularly, I don't look at their offense and say, oh man, we really need a lot of mid-range jump shots from Bradley. There's certainly going to be times, end of a shot clock, he's going to be able to save you sometimes. Some bad possessions will get bailed out because of his ability to create and just pull up from 17 feet, even without creating all that much space. He can still just pull up and make a shot. But man, early, I want to see that downhill. I want to see that north-south. And if he does that, that would be the biggest way I could see him making a jump from last year to this year.
Yeah, and look, I think one of the things that's interesting when you put on that film is looking at some of the lineups that they had on the floor when Bradley has the space and is driving it to the cup and getting all the way there. And you see Anthony Delorso on the floor a ton, who's a 41% three-point shooter. And you see Carter Bryant on the floor a ton. And you see Vesar, who was, at least a threat and someone that was much more active on the perimeter than than Awaka. Arizona, I think, improved their offense last year by really leaning into, playing a little smaller and getting those shooters on the floor. And I'm curious this year, do they have the personnel to do that? I think Aristote's a guy who could really make an impact. Delorso gets no pub or respect for a guy who made 53s at 40% last year, just kind of kicking around. Braden Burries, who's a freshman, is a guy I know that everybody's very excited about, a guy who's a big time scorer, not necessarily a big time shooter yet. Sort of similar to a Caleb Love, stylistically, in terms of, guy that is physical and can get to pull-ups and score at 3 levels, but how efficient is it going to be? I think is the question again. So the give and take for Lloyd of do we try to play smaller here and get some of these wings that space it a little better around Bradley, or do we really lean into this bully ball style? I think will be fascinating. But I think the X factor in all of this is Ivan Karchenkov, the international import, a guy who had EuroLeague experience last year. That's very hard to come by, especially for someone as young as he is. Like, we've talked about these internationals. There's some guys that come over who are, in their 20s, early 20s. And, he just turned 19. We're recording this here on a Sunday. He turned 19 on Saturday. Like, this guy is, this guy was getting legit EuroLeague run as an 18-year-old, which is very impressive and tells you, again, what his floor is in college basketball. It's very high. But he's very much an X factor with this group, because he's someone that can play with the ball in his hands and run. He's someone who can move without the ball. He plays with real intelligence. But again, another guy where the shooting is maybe a little bit shaky. And I'm fascinated to see how Lloyd deploys a guy with his talent level.
Yeah, and a really interesting pickup, because it happened fairly late in the into the summer, and part of the reason why was because Karchenkov was playing a very key role with his Bayern Munich team, a EuroLeague team, one of the best teams in Europe, as they were going deep first in the EuroLeague and then into the basketball Bundesliga playoffs. And so he's someone who is used to playing at a really high level, played a lot of important games. And the way you will really see that right away is his ability to play in transition. And for Arizona fans who know that Lloyd wants to play fast, who love seeing their team get up and down, man, Karchenkov is exactly what you need. And you can see it kind of in traditional ways where he gets a defensive rebound, pushes the ball, and goes and scores. But you can also see he creates a lot of these opportunities with his defense and the way that he gets steals and picks guys clean. And again, when you're watching these done in really high level leagues, I mean, man, that is big time stuff. And I think that he becomes someone you can play at a number of different positions, and someone who's going to have an impact both in this kind of transition offense, such like this, where he catches, not even in an advantageous position and still just able to get to his right hand and score, and also play out these plays where he just creates it on his own and goes and gets a steal and goes and scores on the other end. I mean, these clips are going to be really fun, I think, for people to watch. And then when it comes to the half court, his intelligence as a cutter, just magnificent. This is something you see with a lot of these German players, something that they learn at a young age and do at an extremely high level, move without the ball. Situations like this, where in American basketball, if your man helps from the corner, they're holding space. He says, no, I'm going to follow my help. And instead of taking an open three, I'm going to get the guaranteed 2 with the dunk. Love to see that as well. And then when you look at playing out of the post, like Arizona's probably going to have to do, this is someone who's going to get probably a cut a game and get an easy bucket a game just by catching an American defender sleeping. And I think too, at playing off the ball, someone who you see catches these balls on the run against something you see in Europe, the stampeding of these catches turns a lot of these opportunities into drives that he can get to the rim as well. So someone who can be a really good complementary player. I think the question for him is just that he hasn't shot the ball particularly well. Now, as you watch these clips, I also want you to see how quickly the ball is leaving his hand. Again, these are high level games, top level Germany, which is, one of the best leagues outside the NBA in the world, EuroLeague. He's got that kind of release that he is used to trying to get it off in a hurry against smart, tall, veteran defenders. But whatever the fact may be, he did not shoot the 3 particularly well last year. He was not a non-shooter, thankfully, but that would be the one area of concern, maybe especially for a Arizona team that is looking for shooting.
Right. And again, it how clunky does it get if you're playing Karchenkov at the 3 and Koa at the 4 and a non-shooting 5 and Jaden Bradley at the 1? Best of luck to Braden Burries or Anthony Delorso to go make a shot. That's a really hard strategy to win with in college basketball. But it's, again, the optionality that they have with their bench. I mean, the quality depth that you're talking about of having, the luxury of one of Braden Burries and Anthony Delorso coming off the bench, the luxury of one of Ivan Karchenkov and Dwayne Aristode coming off the bench. That is a really quality unit. The luxury of Krivas or Awaka coming off the bench. I mean, this is a excellent top 8 with not a lot of drop off, and the ability for Lloyd to again tinker with lineups and find things that work. And so I think, last year's story is possible. We may look at a very similar story to last year, where it takes him a little time to find the groups that work. Obviously last year, even more challenging because of the injury to Krivas, but it's going to be interesting for me to watch how Lloyd decides to use all these guys and what ways he can get creative when they don't have great shooting lineups on the floor, because I think it's very obvious watching this group, the talent that they have. And obviously the system is proven. I am just very curious to see how it all meshes together, especially with freshmen who are still learning to play in college basketball, right? If you're going to play Burries and Pete and Aristoti and even Karchenkov, who comes from Europe, but still someone who will be very much adjusting to the game, how do they deal with all the challenges? How do they deal with maybe some early struggles, especially offensively? Do they stay as engaged as you'd like them to be? That I think is a question as well. But this group might be this group has a chance to be the best transition offense in the country. Like, they're going to run people up and down the floor, and then they're going to bully people in the half court. They're not. This is not a team you're going to have fun playing against. Like, even if it's ugly offensively, which is, I think, probably the worst case scenario, you're going to leave that place being like, man, like, that was an absolute war we just played with the Arizona Wildcats.
And it's setting up for a great first night of the college basketball season. Yeah. Arizona playing Florida. And when we're talking about Arizona wanting to play fast, wanting to be incredibly physical, and you're talking about, okay, well, what's the guard play exactly going to look like? We're going to find out quick. And I mean, shout out to both Arizona and Florida for scheduling this game, making it happen. This is all anyone wants, is to have some big time games to start off the college season. But that's one right away. We're going to see a Florida team that's going to play really big and has some new guards on the lineup that are everyone's pretty excited to see. And I think to see that matchup against Arizona, who's going to play a little bit faster and is probably not as long in the front court, but maybe a little bit more bulky. I mean, that's going to be a fascinating one. I'm certainly not proclaiming it right now that we're going to do a scout team episode, but those are the types of games that, man, if it's a classic, we'll be there to respond to.
I will be in attendance in Las Vegas that night, so that should be a lot of fun. We also get AJ DeBance's debut that night against Villanova, which should be a really good game. So, yeah, shout out to Tommy Lloyd. He has been very open to scheduling some big-time games. Yes. They've tested themselves. It's what we need across the sport, and they'll be tested in the Big 12. I mean, we talked about Darren Peterson in Kansas already. We've talked plenty over the last couple of years about Houston and their style of play, their physicality, the way that they play. Obviously, you have Iowa State, who is going to grind people down. Texas Tech, who we just did a video about. The Big 12 is shaping up to be quite the battle. In Arizona, I fully expect to be in the thick of it yet again. So, Fawcett, any closing thoughts of how you feel about this team?
I think that I was probably being in the camp a little bit of doubting Arizona off the hop last year. I do look at that schedule, like you mentioned, where Lloyd is always testing his team. They're probably going to take their lumps. I mean, I don't know if there's a line, or we'll wait until Ken Pom does his preseason to know exactly what will be expected. But I would imagine that Florida will be the favorite to win that opening game. If Arizona loses that one, maybe one or two more of these marquee games, I'm sure there's going to be questions, but it's one of those things that I would just say, do not judge this team until we are well into Big 12 play. And we'll see if it could run things back like last year when, people really forgot about Arizona, despite the fact that they were playing all these big time games. And then, look at the end of the season, great team in the Big 12, and a team that's 13th in Ken Pom, ready to make some noise in the NCAA tournament. And of course, also a team that gave Duke a pretty good push in one of the games of the tournament that I feel like was under discussed. So again, shout out to Lloyd. I just hope that if he continues to maybe drop a couple of these games early in the season, I hope that it doesn't become the thing where media just continues to declare them dead, or maybe he likes that because he keeps bringing them back.
I think it helped them last year to go through that, right? Like winning by games by 100 because you're bigger and more athletic than them, like, wouldn't have helped them figure out the things that they needed to figure out, right? And they'll run into the same thing this year. It's not just Florida. UCLA week 2, UConn week 3. Auburn on December 6th, Alabama on December 13th, San Diego State on December 20th. Oh, and by the way, you got to go play in the Big 12. Like, good luck. I mean, they're going to get tested early. Yeah, they may get beat. They may get picked off a couple times, but I do think those are the games that help you learn and help you get better. And I think this Arizona team is a team that really will grow as the season goes on. So we hope the pod will keep growing. We appreciate all the support. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you don't already, please subscribe to Basket Under Review, the best independent voice of college hoops. We've got great shows, great written content, and of course the Discord community, which is one of one. A lot of fun to be a part of and chop it up with people about whether Bob Ritchie is washed or not. So we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in.